Hey, what's up everybody? Thanks again for coming back to Beneath the Bark Joinery's YouTube channel. I appreciate you coming and watching. Today we're just going over a bit of sanding, what grit sandpaper to use, how to use an orbital sander, a couple techniques while using it so you don't gouge or unevenly sand your piece. Let's see, we go over a bit of buffing and how to tape off the wood to prevent the buffing wax, or the buffing compound rather, to get on the wood and potentially stain it or damage it or raise the grain if you had already finished it like I had. I did it kind of backwards, but that's no problem. So I just taped it off, did some buffing, and that's kind of what we're going to go over. So I hope you enjoy the video. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything regarding this or anything else involving woodworking or anything at all, just comment below and I'll get back to you. Like, subscribe, and share this video. Hey everybody, we're going to do a bit of sanding today. Start with the 80 to 120, 150, 180, and finish with 220. It's a little bit of overkill, but I like to get all the grits in there, especially when I'm working with walnut. You're going to start off going real slow, circular motions, about 1 inch a second there. And as you see, I'm just going in nice circular motions here, making sure to get the entire piece of wood. And with sanding, you want to start with the lower grit, the 80, the 60. You really don't need to if it's a fresh slab, but if it's a lot of defects on it, start with the lower grit to shape that. And always wear a respirator, some type of face mask, so that way you're not breathing in that dust from the sandpaper, the epoxy dust, the wood dust. But with the sandpaper, each grit takes out the scratches from the lower grit. So you start with the 80, the 120 gets out the scratches of the 80. Then you move to 150, that gets out the scratches from the 120, and so forth. So then you can finish with 220, and that's a very nice finishing sandpaper. It creates a nice smooth surface. You get to see the grain really well. You can also finish with 320, and that's fine too, but that's even overkill. Now with the epoxy, you're going to want to go up to the thousands grit. That's a lot different. But when it's just a wood, you can finish with 220 and it will look great. So as you see here, I'm just continuing to go in real small, slow circles to make sure to repeat, excuse me, and get every piece of this wood. And almost like mowing, when you make a line, you keep half your mower on the one side of the line that you made, or not half, some of it, and then some on the other side. And that's kind of what I do when I'm sanding. I go down one way, then go halfway on each side on the way back to get the whole piece. Once you're content that you have all the other grits of sandpaper sanded out and you got a glass-like finish and you're okay with it, like I said, the 120 through every grit was a bit overkill, but that's what I like to do. Once you're content with that, you're done. Everything's smooth, shaped, and what you like it. Then you're gonna get some denatured alcohol or some mineral spirit, something like that. Put it on the rag and wipe all the dust off your piece. You can get on the wood, the epoxy, just get all the dust off. And after you've wiped it, fold over the rag and use a different piece, and use gloves as well. I'd recommend it anyhow, just to be safe. But just get the whole piece wiped off. I even flip it over and get all the dust off there. And what I'm going to do now is start to tape off the wood so I can buff this epoxy. I hadn't recorded it, but I had already sanded it, and I just wet sanded. I'd recommend quickly just start from maybe like a 120 and work your way up through the grits to 2500. I will do another video on sanding epoxy, strictly that, but right now I'm just taping off that wood so I don't get the polish and wax all over the wood. Since I did sand it first, which I would recommend to polish and buff first, but once you get everything taped off, then you can put your polisher on, whatever you're using, a DA. I'm using my Makita orbital sander with a 5-inch heavy cut waxing buffing pad from, that's Chemical Guys actually, you can get that on Amazon. But I put the buffing solution onto the epoxy, I kind of smear it in. And if you're using a random orbital sander, make sure it is at a lower speed. I'm at like 1200 RPMs, moving pretty slowly just to get that paste into the epoxy, getting all them little scratches out. And what this is doing is getting little teeny scratches out, swirl marks. It's going to give it a shine, that high gloss that looks beautiful on the piece. And I'm just going to keep working then. You're almost going to do it the same way as you were if you were sanding wood. Just small circular motions, real slow, about an inch per second. Make sure to really focus on keeping that buffing solution on the wood. On the epoxy, and just keep buffing it out. And then when you're done with that, I recommend using a microfiber towel, but you're just basically gonna buff off that polish now. Wipe it off, buff it out, and what I do is I literally just buff it to try to, that way there's no marks left on the epoxy. When I'm done, get all that solution off there, and buff it in real nice. And that's all I'm doing. I'm just getting it off in your epoxy. That's the first part. Then you're going to want to use some polish and then wax. Put some wax on there at the end. And that's just my recommendation. You don't have to, though. And this is the finished piece, all nice and buffed up. I actually put a finish of polyurethane on there. I'm going to make a little section on how to add polyurethane wipe-on finish. Once you get it all buffed, or once you actually get all the polyurethane on there again, then I actually buff and wax the top of that whole surface as well with the poly on there. But thank you guys again for watching. I hope you like, subscribe, and share. I'll have another video out next week of the finishing of this. Thanks again. Hope to see you next